I just saw the greatest comic book movie ever made. There you have it. Now, okay, the Golden Stallion, the Man of Tomorrow, Sabzu, the Radar Radio Star, here with you, King of the Nerds. Woo! If my voice sounds a little out of it, you have no idea how much over the past few days that I have been recording stuff, recording audio, all for Sovereign Tech. And holy shit, I mean, like, I've been recording a ton, so get ready. Anyway, I decided to take a break tonight, get some dinner, and see a movie. And wow, well, okay, let me be clear here. Really, nothing can ever be greater than the original Superman with Christopher Reeve. I mean, like, that's just not, that's never going to happen. Like, you can't recreate that moment and that magic, no matter how hard you try. You're just, and there's been so many great comic book movies over the years, from Iron Man to, Batman, even in 87, Batman Begins. I mean, whole slew. You're just not going to top, the original Superman. So, and hell, Man of Steel was a great movie. But this movie got damn close, and it's not what you think. I know, based upon the release of this episode, or the time frame of this episode getting released and the title, and I left everything kind of mysterious. But no, we're not talking about a movie from Marvel. We're actually talking about Batman Ninja from the DC animated universe movie Batman Ninja. Now, it is a Patreon tradition, or it's become one, for every time a new DC animated universe movie comes out, or DCAU movie comes out. Again, these are animated, that I do a review. Usually only lasts about 30 minutes, if that, okay? And I see no reason to stop that tradition, and this is certainly a case to not stop it, because Batman Ninja is far and away the best DC animated movie ever. It is far and away the best DC movie ever. Next to the original Superman. This is absolutely fantastic. This was wild. So Batman Ninja came out April 24th, 2018. It was just released. I think I'll be buying the Blu-ray of this because it's so nuts. It's beautifully self-contained. The DC animated universe kind of has a little bit of a continuity to it, but even then, not really, especially since DC Rebirth in the comic books. They've sort of stepped away from New 52 in a way, as to where the DC animated universe started to integrate New 52, like Wonder Woman acted more like she did in New 52, and so on. Not to say that there aren't things that I wish this movie did differently. I wouldn't call them flaws, but I think this movie is absolutely flawless. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, it is ridiculous. Like this is, no pun intended, this movie is batshit insane. Weighing in at a little over about an hour and 30 minutes or so. This is also one of the longer DC animated movies. But it needs that length because you wouldn't think it needed it at first. Like, you could have made a really great, really cool, feudal Japan styled Batman, movie, and you could have done it inside of like 9 minutes, right? And it would have been awesome, and people would talk about it forever. Okay. With all the Japanese stylings and everything. But man, when you, and there's going to be some spoilers here, folks. I'm not going to spoil everything, but there's going to be some spoilers. Okay. So you might want to watch the movie first before you listen to my review, because shit will happen that you'll just go, what the fuck was that? But it all, once the tone gets set that you are in for a ridiculous ride, it all makes sense and it all fits and it all works. And it can only work, in my opinion, because this movie was made without an American production team. You had to hand this over. You hand Batman over to the Japanese, and Batman already had that ethos or part of his mythos, I should say, not ethos, but part of his mythos, that he's a ninja. It's one of the things that actually got me into ninjas as a very young man, because I've been reading Batman since I was like 6. Okay. And I remember reading Dennis O'Neill's novel of Nightfall, and still one of the best novels you could possibly listen to. I mean, just tremendous. The BBC did a great audiobook version of it too, but it wasn't all based on Dennis O'Neill's work, and it's very short. As to where Dennis O'Neill's book, his Nightfall book, is huge. And Nightfall is the classic storyline from the 90s where Batman kind of gives up the cowl because Bane kicks his ass. Anyway, in Nightfall, you see where he gets more in touch with his ninja roots again, and a lot of that was really seminal shit for me, and I tried to actually do a lot of the stuff that was in that, but to varying degrees of efficacy? Is that to varying degrees of effectiveness, I should say. Be like the idea that he only sleeps 2 hours a week. I tried that; it doesn't work. But I was young; I didn't know. See, when I was young and dumb, that was the shit I was trying. I wasn't doing drugs. I was like, okay, how hard, how far can I push my limits? And I guess all that would make for a very interesting human later on in life. But regardless, yeah. So, the ninja styling, of Batman, I think that when Batman was handed over by DC to a Japanese production team in Japan, and they said, hey, here you go, here's Batman. This is probably like the easiest character for you to, really fit in with culturally, and we'd like to see this happen. And there's kind of been like, there was a DC animated movie. It was more like an anthology. Was it Gotham Knights? Where it was like a bunch of different little vignettes all put together, and a couple of those were in a very anime style. And so it's not like this hasn't been done before by foreign teams, but man, I don't think a foreign team's ever been able to run roughshod and just let it go. And I don't know. So the screenplay was by Kazuki Nakashima, and Nakashima-san knew exactly. Wow. I mean, I would have loved to have seen him hand over the papers to the execs at DC, hand over the screenplay, and say, all right, here we go. This is what we got. and I could just picture the DC execs going, what the hell? But then somehow at the end of it, I don't know when they brought in Mizusaki-san, Junpei Mizusaki. I don't know when they brought him in. But this is a director that's got his chops, and I don't know if that name was enough for them to say, all right, fine, you got him, we'll do it. I don't know. But whatever convinced DC to let this happen, this is, I was talking about it on the Q&A this week. I said how, there was a special time in the 90s where, the TV industry and Hollywood and whatever were willing to take risks with science fiction, right? This has to be one of the riskiest bets, and there's no way that this was cheap. This is expensive ass animation. I mean, very expensive. Has kind of an Aeon Flux style, admittedly, but almost like a cell shaded aspect to it. I mean, like everything's moving kind of in different times. It is very unique. Easily the most beautiful DC animated universe movie ever made. Like easily, it's the best movie ever made, but it's also hands down the most beautiful from stem to stern. I mean, just the animation alone is just stunning. And if you've seen the trailers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, this is just a beautiful fucking film, but it's even more beautiful when you finally see it in its full grandiose form. Weighing in, like I said, in about an hour and a half. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they agreed to make this, because this is just wacky. The music in it, let's talk quick about the music before we go further. We're already about 10 minutes in. And look, folks, that movie that Marvel was releasing this week, you know what I'm talking about? The greatest crossover ever, or the most ambitious crossover ever. There's just no way that it holds a candle to this, because there's no way that little crossover film took the risks that this movie took. And part of the reason that this movie could take risks, I'll talk about the music in a second. Okay. Part of the reason this movie could take risks is because DC's characters, more so than Marvel, okay, only Marvel recently could even begin to start making this claim. DC's characters, for probably half a century, have literally reached the level of Greek gods as far as in the popular mindset, okay, in the real world. I mean, they really have. Everybody knows Superman's story. Everybody knows Batman's story. Most people know Wonder Woman's story. And if they didn't, they sure as fuck know it now. Thank you, Patty Jenkins. And so you don't have to. This is the funny thing with DC stories. And I've said this before when I've reviewed other DC movies. You don't need to do an origin story. Marvel needs to do origin stories because, newsflash, Marvel fanboys, nobody knows how Doctor Strange became a thing. Nobody knows the story behind Iron Man. I mean, now they do with the movies, and all that. But by and large, most people don't have a fucking clue. Maybe they know the Hulk, but for most people, they have no idea how all of these Marvel characters came into being or, how they started. So yes, you need origin stories for your characters, Marvel. DC does not need that at all, ever again. I mean, Batman Begins, I mentioned that earlier. Great movie. I really enjoyed it. And what a nice little, origin story for that. And I think that was, talk about ambitious. It was ambitious to even try and take that on. And of course, Superman had an origin story. The original Superman was an origin story and all that. But DC really never needs to do that. And that's one of the great things about Batman Ninja here, is that there is no need. They recognize, no, all these characters. Poison Ivy. The Joker. Certainly Batman's villains, have earned the same reputation as most of the big heroes in the DC universe. Gorilla Grodd, you might not exactly know who. Gorilla Grodd is actually the big heavy in this, is the main villain in this movie. Kind of doing double duty with the Joker. And it works really well. Gorilla Grodd, of course, a character better known as one of the Flash's main villains. In fact, that's where he kind of started his quote unquote career. But works very well with Batman. Gorilla Grodd just fits right in, taking on the Batman family, as it were, because, you get all of the characters in this. You get Catwoman, you get Nightwing, you get Red Robin, you get Red Hood, you get the whole thing. That was fine. At first, I think a lot of people would be like, what the fuck is this Gorilla Grodd? What the hell? Isn't that kind of a weak villain? Oh, not at all. It ended up allowing for so much of this story to do what it did. You couldn't have, I think, any other villain besides Gorilla Grodd. Maybe you could have put Lex Luthor in there, but I think that would have been even stranger. To have a Lex Luthor versus Batman movie, as great as that could be, for two, really brilliant humans to go toe to toe, I would certainly enjoy that. But anyway, so Gorilla Grodd's kind of your main thing. We'll get into the story in a second. I want to talk about the music. Yugo Kanno, there's not a traditional Batman theme or hint of a Batman theme. There's not a hint of Danny Elfman's music in this. Not a touch. And it works. And it works so well. Even Hans Zimmer kind of did hints of, did hints with the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy of Danny Elfman's music, right? And of course, even other great Batman movies, like Christopher Drake did the score for Return of the Dark Knight. That was fantastic. He did hints of Danny Elfman's music. There are no hints of Danny Elfman's music in this at all. And somehow it feels so Batman. It really feels Batman. And there's some great points too, where there's lots of orchestration, but then there's some great points where some very non-traditional film music comes in, and it is nuts when it happens, but it fits somehow. All this ridiculousness that comes together just fits in this movie. It'll just blow your mind. So Kano-san, out of the park. I can't wait. I can't wait. Either La La Land Records or somebody needs to release this fucking soundtrack. I will be all over it. I want this now. Epic shit, and very surprising. Just how stirring, it really was. Anyway, because amazingly, it's very different from what you expect from Batman, but it just fit perfectly. Obviously, this is better. The last DCA movie that I reviewed was Gotham by Gaslight, which was also fantastic. This was obviously better than that, as great as Gotham by Gaslight was. And, you know, I want to get this out of the way before we talk a little bit about story and as far as voice acting and everything. I want to get this out of the way. It is criminal. It is downright criminal that the average moviegoer, at least in America, generally doesn't accept animated movies. At least, I mean, there's certain, yeah, okay, if Pixar does it or whatever, fine, they accept it. You know, if Disney does it, oh, okay, we'll go see it. Every one of these DC animated universe movies are leaps and bounds better than any fucking thing Marvel comes out with. And look, I liked Marvel, okay? Like, I like Marvel's characters. I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying that it's criminal that the DC animated universe, outside of, you know, major cities like New York and LA and some others, that these never get a theatrical release. They could easily stand on their own in theaters, especially Gotham by Gaslight's one that could do it. Hell, I think Justice League Dark could have done it. I think that this movie, Batman Ninja, easily could have taken a number one. It could have beat Rampage in fucking theaters easily. It's that good. You know, and to see it on a huge screen, I would pay my ass for that. Oh, man. With all the shit that goes on in this movie. You know, and honestly, like, I'm not really interested in seeing that ambitious crossover movie from Marvel at all. At least not in theaters. I don't really want to throw money at it. Even though I'm glad Black Panther's in it. That's cool. But I don't want to throw any money at it, so I don't think I'll be seeing that. You won't be getting a review from me about it. I'm not interested. But this movie, this is the comic book movie to see this week. This is the one. And it's a shame that it's getting overshadowed. I mean, in one sense, I like that DC released it just ahead of the release of that Marvel movie, because DC probably knew we genuinely, artistically, objectively have the riskier, more dramatic, better film. We've got it. We can smoke Marvel with this if people could just get it in their heads that animated movies are real movies. You know, are just as valid movies as live action. It's that good. I'm not kidding. It's really that good. I think IGN gave it like 9.7 out of 10. What the fuck gets 9.7 out of 10 by those asshats? I mean, like, because I'm telling you, it's that great. So let's get into the story a little bit. So it opens up modern day Gotham City. Batman's going after Gorilla Grodd. Gorilla Grodd has, like, there's this big meeting going on. He's gathered together all the villains, kind of like a supervillain or Society of Supervillains, you know, from the 70s. Remember that? Like, you know, not Legion of Doom. But anyway, like that used to be a big thing, was the Society, which was the Society of Supervillains, and Grodd was one of the head guys in that. So he's kind of gathering all of Gotham's villains together. And he has the Quake engine, which is effectively this time travel machine. And Batman is trying to stop him, along with other members of the Bat team and everything. Catwoman's there, all of that. And he ends up not being able to stop him. And the Quake engine, ends up taking everybody in differing points to feudal Japan, to medieval Japan. And everybody ends up like when the Quake engine goes back, it kind of falls apart, and its power converters and everything, you know, fly all over the place. These are important parts of the story because you need to get all the power converters to reactivate the Quake engine to get back to modern day Gotham, which is what a lot of people want to do, or at least what the heroes wish to do in this. This is the first part of where I wish things were a little different. Okay. The story works. It's fine. You know, the time travel element, okay, you know, like it really works well. I would have been just as happy, though, if this was more of, in some ways it is, but I wish it was more of like the Emerald Dragon story, which was a Green Lantern miniseries. Actually, I think it was just a trade paperback back in the 90s, where it was in Japan, or maybe it was China. Anyway, no, I'm pretty sure it was Japan. And you find out that there was like a Green Lantern way back in Japan. And it was a really, really cool thing. But it wasn't like having Hal Jordan, you know, go back in time to feudal Japan. It was, no, we have this other character. And I think it would have been fine if they just took feudal Japan as the setting and had a Batman-esque character, a Batman-like character, and have all the villains like just be part of feudal Japan, natively, not have it be a time travel story, just have it be like in Elseworlds, kind of like Gotham by Gaslight or something. I would have preferred that a little bit, but once the story kicks in, you're not caring anymore. Once it really kicks in and the first few surprises start hitting, you're really not caring. And you're just like, no, yeah, this is how this had to be, but I still do wish that it was that. And that's originally what I was expecting when I saw the trailers. So maybe that's just my expectations, getting ahead of me. Anyway, moving along with the story, and, to get into like the first moment of ridiculousness when this goes to like the next level, there's an initial point where Catwoman and Batman are going to go after the Joker, which what happens is when these villains all end up in the past, Batman arrives 2 years after most of everybody else does. Okay, so they're all settled in, and they have effectively taken over their own city-states, their own daimyos, okay, in medieval Japan. And they, each of the villains has, like Two-Face has his own, Poison Ivy has his own, Joker has his own, etc. And Deathstroke's there as well. And so they're going after Joker, and in so doing, you find out that Alfred's there or whatever, and somehow the Batmobile ended up getting transported back in time as well. I guess apparently because Alfred was in it. Again, logical leap, but it doesn't really matter because at first you're like, well, that's kind of weird that he got the Batmobile. And then when he starts using it and he's going after the Joker, suddenly the Joker's castle, which he calls Arkham Castle, again, he has one of these power converters from the Quake engine, from Grodd's Quake engine, and it turns like into a transformer. It turns into a giant robot. Like this movie becomes a kaiju film, Godzilla style film, in very short order, and it's beautiful. I mean, it's ridiculous. You're like, what? Wait, what? Suddenly this castle's transforming into a giant robot. But it just feels so perfectly Japanese and so ridiculous that it actually works. And Batman's, I thought it was interesting. Like the Batmobile in this is probably the coolest Batmobile I've seen yet in any movie. And I'll explain why. Because as he's doing this first assault on Arkham Castle against the Joker, Batman's, the Batmobile will turn into the Batwing. Okay, that's nice. It doesn't have to be a separate vehicle at all. It turns into the Batwing, and then this giant robot, kind of incapacitates the Batwing, and then the middle of the Batwing shoots out, and it's the motorcycle. It's Batman's motorcycle, and he's going around on that. And boy, there's some great fucking motorcycle action sequences that happen within that. I mean, really, really slick. But I mean, Japanese animators and motorcycles, they know what they're doing. I mean, just watch Akira. But anyway, yeah, I mean, and that, not only that, it doesn't stop there. So, it's a motorcycle at first, and then Batman encounters a character where he needs a little extra strength. Maybe you can guess who I'm talking about. And the motorcycle transforms into the armored Batman suit that maybe you'd remember more from Dark Knight Returns. And again, it just like your initial thought is that's crazy. Like I never thought about the motorcycle being able to do that. But then when it happens, you're like, well, all right, But I thought that was actually a really cool Batmobile that it can, it has so many different versions of itself, or so many different modes that it can become the Batwing. Then it can, become the motorcycle if it needs to, and then the motorcycle can turn into armored Batman. I thought that was awesome. Like, that was really cool. Ridiculous, but really, and something we're not used to with Batman. But it was really cool, and it just kind of worked. So that was nice. And, I got to tell you, Catwoman, when you first encounter her in modern day Gotham, but when you first encounter her in ancient Japan, she is so hot in this. The animation, I mean, fucking A. Like, bravo. I mean, they delivered it. Also, Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn's in it, and they all look, I mean, they are at peak sexy in this. In fact, there's even some great lines during some of the fighting where Catwoman's going to take on Harley Quinn, and she says, "Time for some girl on girl action." And I was like, oh yeah. and even like Harley Quinn tongues her face, and they had no, like I said, risky movie. They had no problem going there in this. Granted, the DCAU has never really had a problem with going sexy anyway. It's one of its great strengths, especially over the Marvel films that really refuse to go sexy, because Marvel films have to appeal to the dum-dums. Marvel films have to appeal to the lowest common denominator, okay, except for maybe Black Panther. But anyway, that was really, really wild, and just the animation is just so stunning, and the whole thing's very sexy, frankly. I thought. So that all that happens, and Batman just barely gets away with his life, meets up with all of his other, Bat family, Nightwing and all them. Batgirl's not in this. That I would have accepted that. That's maybe the one flaw, is they really should have had Batgirl or Batwoman, one of those, in this. Batwoman would have been great if it was Cassandra Cain, because she's, bisexual, lesbian. I mean, depending upon which version we're talking about, that would have been nice. But anyway, so he meets back up with them, and then he finds out that there's actually this ancient Japanese prophecy, and there's this entire clan of ninjas called the Bat Clan that has been waiting for their shinobi, their ninja master to appear, and that ninja master is Bruce Wayne, is this Batman. And so that creates kind of an instantaneous army to take on the armies that all of the Batman villains have developed over the past 2 years, in feudal Japan. And it really works. And, the one thing it kind of reminded me of, like this, because, most of the main characters are from the future, it very much reminded me of the Next Generation episode, was it Cupid? Where the crew gets stuck in the holodeck. Or not in the holodeck. No, like Q creates this whole thing, and they're like in Robin Hood. They're replaying Robin Hood, and Vash is Maid Marian, and all of that. It very much felt like that kind of fun, and that was cool. Like that's the one thing, is as sexy as it could be, as dramatic, as at points even like kind of sad, and just like really a lot of emotional weight going on, and intensity. Certainly intensity. Maybe emotional weight's not the best term. But this is a very intense movie. It still felt fun. It still felt very fun. And I think that's the little magic behind it, is that the ridiculousness of what's happening on the screen lends it a sense of fun that I don't think that Marvel crossover movie is going to provide. Not really. It'll provide some laughs, but it won't give you the fun that, they're probably going to try and pull some heartstrings and whatever else, and fuck it, I don't care. I'm not going to see it. But anyway, so... yeah, that was really wild. I don't want to spend too much more time reviewing it, but I mean, this movie goes on, and there's lots of twists and turns and characters switching. There's some points where the animation changes to really highlight a new set of emotions, and like a very separate, and it gives you some scale, some time scale, not scope of like area, because Japan's just a little island, but at the end of the day, but it gives you time scale when it kind of switches animation midway through. I thought that was very nicely done, very clever, very risky, because the animation is not of anywhere near the same quality as the rest of the film. But there's a lot of other points where you're changing perspective that the animation does change in this. And it works, and it gives you the visual cue of, okay, this is representing something that's happening elsewhere, blah, blah, blah. And it just works. This is such a brilliant, Miyazaki-san, his direction is on full display here, because it works. Like, that was brilliant, to do things in that way. It really, really works. I'll tell you another great thing about this movie. You get a sword fight between Batman and Joker. Okay, not really a spoiler. You get a sword fight between Batman and Joker. I think ever. It's probably the best animated sword fight I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of them. I mean, it's huge, and that fight has emotional punch to it. I don't think I've felt that kind of emotional punch since in an animated movie, since maybe like the original Transformers animated film, when it was Optimus Prime versus Megatron. I don't think I felt that kind of weight, and it's here, and it works, and it hits all the cues. Again, this movie wastes no time with origin story. It just says, all right, Batman, these characters, here we go. and you go, and it's 100, it's 190 miles per hour, when it hits, just fantastic. And the sword fight alone was so worth it. And that's what I was saying earlier about how, like, you could have made something really cool in 9 minutes. That sword fight could have been that really cool thing, and everybody would have just said, holy shit, that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. I was literally wooing. Another reason my voice is a little hoarse. I was literally wooing during this film. I was laughing. There was points I was like, yeah, woo. The whole thing. And at the end of it, I was clapping. By the way, there is an end credits sequence you're going to want to see, or an end credits scene, post-credit scene that you're going to want to see that's there. But I was clapping when the movie came to an end. I just, because I was so blown away by this. And again, I'm not going to give everything away because like, you just won't believe it, like suddenly the shit that just happens. And there's so many great nods to some of the other uniquely Japanese aspects of Batman that have been throughout his history, because Batman was a character that Japanese entertainment latched onto pretty strongly. Not so much, I don't know if it's because of Batman has a kabuki flavor, but I think it has more to do with the ninja flavor that he brings to the table. Let's talk a little bit about the voice actors. So Batman, which, Batman has a very impressive history of voice actors, and we know the famous ones. I got so used to Bruce Greenwood's Batman from Gotham by Gaslight. I'll admit I missed that. Like, I missed having it in this movie because I thought Bruce Greenwood was really slick, but I don't know if it could have worked. Like, because I don't know if you could get a good like epic kind of yell out of Bruce Greenwood. Bruce Greenwood, of course, most people will know, listening to this, probably as Captain Pike from the J.J. Abrams Star Trek movies. But he did a phenomenal job in Gotham by Gaslight, and one of the best Batman voice actors, I think, ever. One of the best, not the best. We all know who that is. But regardless, they ended up getting Roger Craig Smith. So if you don't, and he did great. Like, I'm not taking, just because I missed Bruce Greenwood, I'm not taking anything away from the fact that, Roger Craig Smith, so he's well known. He's been doing the voice of Chris Redfield for the Resident Evil video game series, and actually I think in the animated films as well, for a while now. And he's fantastic, and he delivered. Like, there is no flaw in him voicing Batman. It worked. It was good. It was really good. Tara Strong voiced Harley, of course, and Tara Strong is, wow, one of the nerd dreams out there, and she also voiced Poison Ivy. She did great with both. All the voice acting was top notch. I watched this movie in English, then I watched some of it in Japanese. I don't know if there's really an advantage, in fact, maybe a disadvantage for American audiences to watch it in Japanese, as to where sometimes I think when watching anime, it's actually better to watch it subtitled. I don't think so with this one, because there's so much going on. You don't want to really take the time to read the subtitles. I'm glad. I could have very easily seen, and I would have been very respectful of the decision if DC said, okay, no, this is a full Japanese production. We're going to do subtitles, and there's going to be, the Japanese dub. I'm glad they didn't do that, because otherwise I think you might not have been able to take in everything that's really going on in this movie at all wild times. So I'm glad they did the English dub. They allowed for that. And again, all the voice actors were just top of their game. Everybody that was involved. This whole production is a masterclass in top of game. Everybody here just made it fucking work. And I want DC to let, teams from other countries and kind of untried teams. Some of these people are master craftsmen, but they're not, used to producing something for American audiences or using American properties, right? I want them to reach out to other countries, other geographic areas, and let some untried production teams with American properties just go nuts with their characters and differentiate the fuck out of themselves from the bullshit, the monotonous bullshit that Marvel's pulling with their live action films. Okay. And And do I even have to mention Marvel's animated films? No, because you know that they're not at the same class as the DC animated ones. So, and look, I'm not a DC fanboy. I have as much problems with DC as I do with Marvel. Okay, I can't stand either company right now. But the one thing DC has been consistently doing right over the past 5-6 years, like since New 52 or even a little before New 52, has been their animated universe and their animated series. I mean, Batman the animated series, of course, is arguably the greatest cartoon of all time, or animated show of all time. Superman the animated series, which I actually thought was better than Batman the animated series, but that's just me. And I mean, they have been knocking it out of the park very consistently with their animated universes. And so, I'll still consume that, and boy, am I glad I do, because I am going to be thinking about this movie all the time, and almost every movie is going to get compared to this. Because, I mean, there's points where the ridiculousness, it comes down to downright cheesy. Me, I like cheesy. I love cheesy, and I know most people hate cheesy because they're depressed fucks, but man, oh, does this movie feel so good? I mean, well, anyway, I shouldn't have said that depressed fucks thing. No, yeah, I should have said it, but not everybody's a depressed fuck. But if you are, I think you'll still enjoy this movie because it is just so well done, so well executed, that I think it works. So anyway, man, yeah, I'm not gonna let this go. I don't want to talk about this for an hour. I could easily talk about this for as long as the movie ran, for the movie's runtime. Frankly, I could talk about it, but this is a masterpiece. This is a full-on, I mean, and I know I use that term sometimes flippantly with other, especially DC Animated Universe films, but no, this is a fucking masterpiece. This is a masterpiece you didn't think could ever, that you could never imagine. This is a masterpiece that, I just would have never thought of this. And anytime I encounter something that I just would have never thought of, I am always staring at it in awe. And there's things where I'm like, yeah, okay, my mind could have gone there. This is one of those things. This is like Earthbound for Super Nintendo, where you go, whoever the fuck made that and that story, the whole Mother series, right, for Super Nintendo, or well, some of it was for the Famicom, but anyway, you look at that and you just go, man, someone's working on another level. Someone's really thinking on a whole other fucking level. Nakashima-san was thinking on a whole other level. This was great. I mean, and a lot of, there's a lot of Japanese tropes. Like I said, this very quickly turns into what could be called a kaiju film, I mean, and I love kaiju films, so that helps. But I mean, it very quickly becomes that. And it's okay. That's the amazing thing is it's okay. Oh man, just go watch this. Don't bother with that other movie. Wait, that movie, you can see that anytime. It's not going to matter. Yeah, you can see this movie anytime too, I suppose. But don't wait for this one. This is the real masterpiece that came out this week. It really, really is. Batman Ninja. This will go down in history. I mean, this will really go down in history. I cannot believe that this was made. I cannot believe that DC allowed this to happen. I think I can only figure that DC's just like, well, go for broke. Ever with the failure of the live action Justice League and all these other things, that's the only thing I can figure is they just said, yeah, we might as well just let it ride. We got to do something. And they're just throwing shit at the wall. And, we ended up with a golden egg that came out of that ass. And, and it's Batman Ninja. Woo. It was fantastic. I want to watch it again. The second time around, there's probably a lot more to take in. And I wonder how much foreshadowing and how many little hints, because there's so much happening visually that maybe I didn't catch the first time. There might be more the second time that I watch it. But there's a lot of surprises that I don't think that might make it a little less enjoyable, but no, just the style, the production level, the way that this is put together and the story itself, it's all just so crazy that I don't think I could ever love it less. It's incredible. So there you go. There's my review of Batman Ninja. Just came out. You can find it on the quote unquote public library. You know what I mean? And, yeah, have a great time with it. Let me know. You can comment underneath, You can comment underneath the sound on Patreon if you want, and let me know what you thought of it, or if you think that I'm gushing a little too much, let me know, and maybe I'll comment about it on a future Q&A or something. So anyway, more stuff to come out on Patreon, of course, and actually maybe this week there will even be more, but we'll see. So anyway, I will see all of you on the other side. And go watch Batman Ninja. Go watch it. Go watch it. All right, that's it.